Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up. It's been a bit of a weird month for me personally, but let's not get into that. First up, I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is Mistborn Book 1. It's quite a chunky one. I think it's like 640 something pages, so it was actually the largest book I read in 2022, and I really enjoyed this. I don't quite know what I expected when I started reading this book, but I have known everyone's kind of not obsessed, but anyone that reads Brandon Sanderson generally enjoys his writing. And while I think the book was good and I enjoyed reading it, I did kind of expect more. I thought he was going to be like the second coming of Tolkien or something. Fabulous story and very beautiful prose, but it's quite basic prose, which I guess it serves a purpose, that it's just the bare bones of story and there's no sort of embellishments and mile-long passages about trees. But I don't know, there is a charm to very ethereal writing that very much puts you into the heart of where you are. And I think that's why Tolkien stands above everyone else, is the depth of world building. Nobody in their lifetime has ever come close to the scope of Middle-earth, and that's because it's a lifelong passion project. But the world in The Final Empire is fantastically realised, and the characters are very they're fleshed out really well, especially characters like Kelsier and Vin, our protagonists. You very much feel like you're on the journey with them, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I have already got the rest of the first trilogy of the Mistborn series, so I probably will be reading that in the coming weeks because I'm intrigued to see where it goes after the bloody final showdown in this book. My memory card was suddenly filled up, so I've now lost my train of thought. The lighting is even worse than it was earlier. Let's just try and get this done. What was I saying about The Final Empire? That I really enjoyed it. I think it feels very mumuch like a blockbuster book. I think I said about this when I first started reading it, that it feels very much like the MCU, or a good action movie that hits all the right beats and just gives you enough character building and sense of place to fulfill a story. So yeah, I would say this is the action blockbuster of fiction, but it's not full of action. It's just that I don't know, it's not poetic or fantastically written that literally the prose oozes off the page and it fills you with this, I don't know, medieval feeling of chivalric romance and things like that. But yeah, I think it's good and enjoyable, and I don't need it to be anything else. To expect it to literally hit on all fronts is, well, it's not clearly Brandon Sanderson. And then the next book that I read and finished in December was Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I've been meaning to read this for years because it just very much feels like it would be my kind of book, very much entrenched in the tradition of a Greek tragedy, but set in modern times, and that just appeals to me because I used to read Greek tragedies in the library at school when I was a teenager because I was an absolute nerd, didn't have many friends, and the library was a safe space, essentially. You wouldn't get horrible people in the library because it's uncool to go in there. I really enjoyed this. I read this very quickly, for me anyway, for the size that it is. This is a 600 something page book, and I read it pretty much from Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve, and it was nice. It was a nice time. It's a bit of a strange read for the festive period, but I am not one for festive cheer, clearly. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I liked how we pretty much start off with knowing who's gonna die, and that builds the tension. That essentially makes us the reader think, oh gosh, what is gonna happen for this to happen? And as the story slowly unfolds itself, it's a very intricate origami, and then you start to get a sense of, oh okay, his Bunny, the character that gets, you see him how Richard, the protagonist, sees him and how he belittles people. He's frankly quite horrible, very elitist, a misogynist, an anti-Semite, not a great guy. So you kind of start to think, oh, actually, maybe he deserves it. Maybe he should get killed. But then there's also like a breakdown of the characters. Like, after the deed is done, we follow the psychological implications of murder. And I thought it was really interesting, and how like all the characters start to sort of unravel the perfection of these elite Greek students is a facade. Like, they are just rich kids that, quite frankly, are a piece of shit. Most of them. And it's just interesting how like you feel like the story is one thing, but then it becomes clear that it's not a romanticisation. It's quite clearly like I don't know whether to say as far as a satire of like elite student sort of vibes. I don't know what I'm saying. But it very much feels like a cautionary tale of hubris, and I think it literally says on the front, on the first page, does such a thing as the fatal flaw, that showy dark crack running down the middle of a life, exist outside literature? I used to think it didn't, now I think it does, and I think that mine is this, a morbid longing for the picturesque at all costs. So yeah, the fatal flaw, and each of the students have a fatal flaw. And for most of them it is hubris, it's pride, it's feeling perhaps like they deserve more than they perhaps should, and that it's their God-given right to mould the world the way they want it to be. Like, Henry is quite an interesting character, and how he sort of becomes the mastermind of the plot. Sorry for anyone that hasn't read this, but I'll try not to like spoil it too much. But yeah, it's almost as if he's playing God in how he directs the narrative and how everyone sort of falls into place behind what he's doing. Like, he becomes the director. I really enjoyed it. I feel like you could analyse this to the bowels of hell and beyond. But yeah, like, essentially I think it is a great modern tragedy, and like there's a lot of references to literature. Like, I haven't read Milton, I haven't read Dante, I have read Marlowe, which there was allusion to Dr. Faustus, which is one of my favourite plays. Although I would have like referenced his waxen wings did mount above his reach as a quote, because for a lot of them they sort of felt like they were above the reproach of law. But it would be interesting to sort of revisit this book after reading everything that is referenced. All of the great Greek tragedies, Milton, like I said, Paradise Lost, maybe Goethe's Faust, like for another Faust story, and then properly analysing it. But it was Christmas, I wasn't going to do that. It felt very much, like I said, my kind of book, and I did enjoy it, and I felt slightly called out at points about being a bit too pretentious, which, like, sometimes you can be. Although I would say, like, my sister always says I'm really pretentious, but I would like to say that I'm not as pretentious as students in this book, so that's something, isn't it? Next up, I'm going to talk about movies and TV shows quite quickly, because I didn't actually watch that much, as far as I think anyway, and like as in line with previous months. And that's mainly because the new expansion of World of Warcraft came out on the 28th of November, which is Dragonflight. So naturally, I played the hell out of it in December, and it's so good. It's really like fun to just sort of explore like this whole new world alongside everyone else, because I've come into the game like really late, and it was like halfway through the previous expansion, which a lot of people were saying that they didn't particularly enjoy it, which was Shadowlands. So it's been fun sort of exploring a brand new expansion pack. I'm still a complete amateur. I still haven't done any dungeons because I'm scared of like people shouting at me and me being absolutely shit that everyone just quickly leaves, because that happened once when I was like really new to the game. I was like, oh, dungeon, what's that? Idiot. So let's get on to... We'll do movies first, because I can't remember exactly what TV shows I've watched. I watched the new adaptation of Lady Chatterley's Lover? Chatterley's Lover? Whatever it was. Special guests in the movie were like pheasants, and I'd never seen that type of pheasant before. It was like a golden pheasant. I was like, oh my god. I'm slightly obsessed with pheasants, so it was just like quite cute to see tiny little baby pheasants in the movie. I thought it was quite a beautifully shot period drama. It was a bit raunchy, but yeah, like I've never read the story. I probably won't ever read the story because I'm not like a massive classics person. I thought it was pretty decent. Like there's some really beautiful shots in it, but apart from that it was alright. Then I watched Morbius because I was morbidly interested in seeing how shit it actually was. It was terrible. Literally the worst. I think it was the worst movie I saw last year, and that's saying something. Like, why did they do that? And then it kind of made me think, oh shit, like this is kind of part of the MCU. What the fuck are they going to do to Blade? So naturally I watched Blade 2 afterwards just to cleanse my palate. Then I watched Rabid, which was a mistake. This is a David Cronenberg film. It's on Mubi at the moment because they've got like a couple of his films, which is like, yes, thank you. I've been trying to watch these films for ages because I've had like a Cronenberg binge fest last year. But yeah, Rabid, I watched that while I had COVID. Brilliant. Great decision. I thought it was going to be about vampires because on like the synopsis it says about like drinking blood, and so I was like, oh yeah, I didn't know Cronenberg did a bloody vampire movie. How did I not know this? Stuck it on. It's all about viruses while I'm battling the demon virus of the moment. Great fun. I enjoyed the movie, but it was a bit like weird and surreal to be watching a virus movie while you're battling the virus. Don't really know what else to say about it other than it was just a bit surreal. Next we got Ready Player One. I saw this on BBC iPlayer and I was just like, oh, I haven't watched that yet. It was okay. It was a bit naff actually, but it was something to pass the time. Then I watched Equilibrium, like the really dodgy, it is kind of dodgy, like dystopia from 2002 with Christian Bale, where everyone takes like these pills to be emotionless, and then suddenly through the power of literature and art, he starts waking up and feeling his emotions. There's like a John Wick moment in it where there's a little abandoned dog, and then it just triggers him to like feel his emotions, and I was thinking, if anyone kills that dog, you're gonna start something here. What else did I watch? Oh yes, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. What a delight. I love stop motion stuff. Like there's just quite a charm to it. Like there's a childlike playfulness to any stop motion movie, and couple that with Guillermo del Toro's sort of very macabre, beautiful, gothic style. Beautiful. Did I cry at Pinocchio? I think I did, maybe, at one point. And I was super interested how there was like fascism. Like suddenly there were people like hailing and like red armbands. And I was just like, oh my god, what? I didn't know this was part of it, but it kind of feeds into like the themes of Pinocchio and like control and I guess brainwashing, and just the idea of being unique. Like Pinocchio has a unique magic because he's magical, but Geppetto wants him to be basically a new son, a direct carbon copy of the one before him, but he's different and he holds a power because he is different, and it kind of juxtaposes the difference of Pinocchio with the hard-lined, oh, you've got to comply with this set of rules that fashion entails. So like it was a very interesting juxtaposition, and I quite enjoyed that, and it kind of, yeah, like it had a lot of heart to the story. Then I rewatched Lord of the Rings. I made my mum watch it. I did try and get my dad to watch it and like everyone else in the family, but she was the only person that stuck it out. It was the extended editions as well, and I think I've converted her, so woohoo. But yeah, I think that's actually like the third time I've watched Lord of the Rings this year, which is a kind of, I don't know, is that an obsession? To watch like a 12-hour movie essentially 3 times in 1 year? Don't know. I think that's the most times I've rewatched it in 1 year. And then the final film I watched was Glass Onion: A Knives Out Mystery. I thought it was okay. It was quite fun, but I don't know, like it felt more of a comedy than I perhaps would liked it to have been. But yeah, like it's a critique on, I don't know, excess, obsession with self, and the vapid nature of celebrity. Like all the people in it are pretty toxic, except from Janelle Monáe's character and Benoit Blanc. There were some revelations in it that were really good and that I personally didn't see coming, but I did kind of guess who the ultimate bad guy was, because it just felt natural. Like, certain things in it sort of led to that decision. I didn't know how it had got to that, but I kind of guessed who it was. So, je suis Sherlock Holmes. Anyway, yeah, that's all the movies I watched. TV shows, probably only going to talk about 2 or 3 maybe. But essentially, I watched Wednesday, which I thought was fun and deliciously macabre, and kind of made me realise why everyone used to call me Wednesday, because, yeah, she's a bit weird. In a good way. In a good way. I'm not as mean to people as she is in the series, but there are certain things that line up, which I thought was fun. Her style is impeccable. And the cello, oh, if I could, like, I would rewind the clock and somehow make my family rich so that I could learn the cello, because I've been obsessed with that instrument for as long as I can remember. Like, I love cello concertos, Bach being one of my favourites. Glass Onion, Yo-Yo Ma had a bloody cameo. My favourite cello player. I was like, oh my god, is that Yo-Yo Ma? Lo and behold, it is. Anyway, back to Wednesday. Yeah, like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, yes, it's very much aimed at a young teenage audience. Would teenage me have been obsessed with it? Absolutely. Would have ate everything up in that. I've never watched The Addams Family before, so people have been like critiquing it as just basically cashing in on the name Wednesday and making it less about what those movies and like the old TV show were about. I've never seen them, so I can't really comment on it, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was fun. A little bit predictable in some places, but it was fun. Oh yeah, I started rewatching one of my favourite TV shows, which is Pushing Daisies, because I just needed some wholesome stuff in my life. And it is so sickly sweet, so beautiful. Like, the set designs are just magnificent, and it's like very sickly sweet, but also very macabre as well, because the story is about this guy that can touch people and bring them back to life, and then if he touches them again, they die forever, and he has like a 1-minute slot before someone else dies in their place. So naturally he uses it to investigate murders, and he teams up with this detective who is hilarious. He's so blunt and just very rude in places, but hilarious. And they team up and go around doing like private investigation. Oh yeah, he's a private investigator, not a detective. Yeah, and so they investigate murders, collect the rewards, but then there's also like the fact that he finds out that his childhood sweetheart has died, so then he brings her back to life, and then someone else dies in her place. And then like they have the most wholesome romance because they can't ever touch each other, and so it's just so genuinely heartwarming. There's a whole load of other stuff that happens, but it is literally one of the most beautiful TV shows I've ever watched. Weirdly, it's created by Brian Fuller, who is an absolute genius, and he made like Hannibal. It's just like he could do something so beautiful, so sweet, heartwarming, sickly, but like just the right amount of sugar in it, and then do something so macabre and grotesque but beautiful and operatic like Hannibal. Sensational, brilliant. Love it. I've been obsessed with this show since it aired, and I remember like watching it on ITV when it was airing and just being entranced by it and thinking, wow, this is so cool. I love it. And then I was so upset when it got cancelled. It's brilliant. Love it so much. And then the final TV show I watched in December was The Witcher Blood Origin, which, are we surprised that I watched it? It's a show where most of the main characters are elves. Hello. Screams moi. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't really understand the criticisms of it, other than it felt a bit too short, and that a lot of things were just too packed in to 4 episodes. Like, really? Couldn't we have done more? And apparently they recorded 6 episodes but edited it down to 4. Bit of a mistake, Netflix. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought the main story was intriguing. I loved the costuming and just the sort of very epic quest. And the origin of witches I thought was quite interesting. And the convergence of the spheres or something. Again, like, I'm not like deep in Witcher lore because I've only ever watched the other show, the main one with Henry Cavill, who apparently isn't going to be the Witcher after the 3rd season, which is shit. Bit ridiculous, to be honest. But I have started reading the short story collection, which is The Last Wish or something, which I've had on my Kindle for centuries. I think I bought it for like 99p when the first series came out. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to read The Witcher. Didn't fucking bother. But I've started reading it, but it's not part of this wrap up because it's January. But yeah, like I really enjoyed it. Like anything with elves, I'm gonna check it out. And not like the annoying Christmas elves. I don't like those kind of elves, like fantasy elves. I will be there. Essentially, that is my December wrap up. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you had a lovely Christmas and a fantabulous New Year. And here's to 2023. Peace. Laters. I don't know what I'm doing. Like and subscribe. Like, yeah, thanks for being here.